What's up, class? Professor Calderon here, and I got another video for you. Excuse me, this one is for week 9. Sorry, I'm on the wrong page. Okay, so week 9. The cinema started life as a capitalistic industry, and that is what it remained at heart at most times and in most countries. But as a capitalistic industry run for profit on a large scale, it has been the subject of much moral, political, and economic concern on the part of the government and society at large. So you had governments and paragovernmental agencies in most countries, moreover, even in the paradigm of private enterprise, the United States of America, it has contained large sectors that were operated not by profit-seeking capital, but by artists and activists. So you have this large capitalistic industry that artists and activists were sort of seeking its way out, or seeking its some sort of control over, or not necessarily control, but to be a part of. In general, the entertainment sector was the most capitalistic, with art, cinema being state subsidized, and documentary and educational films the object of more active government intervention. From a conventional Western perspective, the various interventions into and departures from the working main capitalistic industry can be seen as an exception to presumed norm and provoked by exceptional circumstances, for the most part marginal to the main development of cinema. So from a Western perspective, the various interventions into and departures from the working and mainly capitalistic industry can be seen as an exception. So for the most part, most industries did not depart from the capitalistic ventures of cinema. In its early years, up to the end of the First World War, the cinemas conformed broadly to the normal perspective. It entered the world of reportage as early as the Spanish-American War of 1898. It found its way into the world of moral concern with such films as George Loane's, Tucker's Traffic in Souls. Its monopolistic practices began to be scrutinized by the courts in the course of the battles waged by Thomas Edison against his competitors throughout the first decade of the century and during the World War. Okay, I'm skipping down now to Revolution on the bottom of 333. The first sign of the new state of affairs came with the establishment of Hungary in 1919, of the short-lived Republic of Councils, of whose acts was to nationalize the film industry. In the same year, Russian revolutionary government concerned at the immigration of film industry personnel and the loss of equipment, they also enacted to nationalize its film studios and to bring filmmaking generally under revolutionary control. So you have this idea that the government is going to completely control, it's going to bring an entire industry and nationalize it. An industry that endeavors were at its core artistic. So now you have nation states or nations bringing them in and saying, we're going to control this. That's how powerful it is. A new film culture in the Soviet Union was at first markedly internationalist. Films, including American, continued to be imported. Fairbanks and Pickford visited Moscow in 1926 to great acclaim. Foreign styles were then imitated. From the mid-1920s, a distinctly Russian style developed, based on composition and montage, which, also not conspicuously popular with audiences at home, was very influential abroad. So Russia was Russia had developed its own was developing its own style or styles of filmmaking at this time, 1926. Control of the cinema by the Communist Party and by the state steadily increased throughout the 1920s and 1930s. In the early years, the authorities relied on a large extent on the political commitment and enthusiasm of filmmakers to produce films in conformity with revolutionary ideas. So if you were not with the revolutionary ideas, the revolutionary aesthetic, good luck. You weren't making movies. Um, what has happened in the Soviet Union was followed with anxiety throughout the West. The American industry was concerned mainly with the loss of lucrative markets for its film. They were exporting films all across Europe at this point. And so this is going to be a loss of them because they're going to lose a market. Moving on to fascism. Not all governments were universally hostile to the Soviet approach. Shortly after the fascists came to power in Italy in 1922, Mussolini echoed Lenin in proclaiming that the cinema is the most powerful weapon. In 1926, the government nationalized the production of newsreels and documentaries, making them an arm of the state for propaganda purposes. Despite their claims to be creating a totalitarian state, the fascists intervened very little with entertainment cinema. Excuse me. Excuse me. So the fascists, they had this hands-off approach in nationalizing their cinema, even though they felt like they regarded it neither as culturally or politically important, which was a mistake on their part. Okay, far more dramatic were the events in Germany. At the beginning of 1930s, Germany enjoyed a dominant position in European cinema. It also had a vital left-wing culture, which produced its own films outside the mainstream. The Social Democrats and its competition with them, the Communists, attempted to set up alternative